tales of her wealth, beauty, and devotion began to spread across the city as quickly as the disease. Soon, Adiris' followers called her the High Priestess of Babylon. Her faith was tried when she showed the first signs of the infection. Her cough became a mix of phlegm and blood, and her neck erupted in abscesses, and her four-toed foot darkened. Ashamed of her condition, she began wearing a veiled headpiece and carried a censer that masked the rancid smell of sick that clanged to her skin. No ritual could save her. In a desperate attempt to appease the gods, Adiris banished herself from the city. She traveled north with a few followers until it was no longer possible to walk. They camped in a damp cave where Adiris lay in a pool of vomit. Her followers and she realized the truth in that cave. They were all infected with the plague. Kneeling among her retching followers, Adiris made one last prayer. The black fumes of incense rose into the damp air before being wiped off by a cold breeze. Neither the body of Adiris nor those of her followers were ever found. Many told tales of her return, but no one truly knew what fate had befallen the High Priestess of Babylon. Join me in this episode of Tales of the Original Ones as we discover how Adiris became the Plague. Memory 4097. May your voice reach the beyond. May your voice reach the beyond. May your voice... Adiris speaks this line until it becomes a single word, babbled in harmony with her fellow emissaries in faith.
May your voice reach the beyond. May your voice reach the beyond.
13 women stand in a circle around a stone altar. Adiris' chant falters as time passes, her raw throat the only indication she contributes. Each enunciation, agony. She's nearly forgotten the naked man writhing face down, leather straps binding him. The High Priest Haban raises a hand. Adiris, along with each of the emissaries, stomps, bows her head. She reminds herself, cherish the pain. The sacrifice to the sea-goat, the god of water and creation. The emissaries disperse, and Adiris wanders to the man on the altar. Tears stream from his bloodshot eyes. She wants to lend comfort, assure him the gods love him, perhaps even pull him from the altar, away from the coming pain. She smiles at him as she would a child. If only you understood the importance of your sacrifice, you would laugh with joy. Tenderly, lovingly, she kisses his forehead. May your voice reach the beyond. Devoted to the gods with unwavering faith, this former High Priestess of Babylon convinced hundreds to follow her lead. Hymns and amulets were created in her honor, praising her beauty and foresight. She gained influence during a time of despair when a dark plague was gaining ground and rapidly spreading across Babylon. Her faith proved to be inconsequential against the disease, which she eventually contracted. While she hid the blisters swelling from her neck, the sores crusting her lips, and the rancid smell of sick clinging to her skin, she continued to lead prayers, hoping to appease the gods. But no ritual could save her. We know that desperation became her last hope, and she banished herself from the city of Babylon with a small group of followers and traveled north. Her condition took a turn for the worse, interrupting their journey and forced them to take refuge in a cold cave where they met their end. So who was Adiris before she became infected? She clearly had a position of cult-like leadership and power that forged a massive following before the infamous plague. Let's take a deeper look at how Adiris became involved in the church at a young age. When she was 5 years old, Adiris, the youngest of a family of 7, was left on the brick-red burning steps of the Temple of Purgation at the center of Babylon. To process her shock and sorrow, she held on to the belief that the gods had a plan for her. Her new life was one of quiet servitude. She would tend to the gardens, prepare ceremonial meals, and polish ceremonial incense burners. At night, she would pray for a sign that would reveal her purpose. When she came of age, she accompanied the high-ranking priest during the yearly worshipping of the sea-goat. the god of water and creation. Swinging a censer down the great hypostyle hall, she cast thick black fumes that reached the cold, towering stone pillars before dissipating. Her worries lifted, and the resulting bliss made her feel closer to the gods than ever. She worked herself to the bone each day that followed, fulfilling her duties while taking on new ones as she aided the priests during the purification rituals. The priests were more and more in need of assistance. Cleansings were being performed daily to answer the demand from outside the high temple walls, where a catastrophic plague had resurfaced. Within months, the priests contracted the disease. It did not take long before they became too weak to perform any kind of ritual. Adiris, having assisted many purification rituals, was the only one able to carry on. The swelling panic had to be contained, even if by a novice. The great hall was packed with followers who bowed down as Adiris entered. She strode to the brick altar and grabbed a ceremonial dagger forged in silver, her ruby-ringed fingers wrapping around the blade-like claws. Luxury intrigued the followers, who were struck already by her youth and beauty. As she began reciting the epic of creation, a woman at the back swooned and collapsed. Adiris rushed to her and noticed the black blisters covering her feet. Without hesitation, Adiris grabbed her sacred blade and swung it at her own foot, severing a toe. Then she offered the bloody part to the gods, asking them to protect the woman. A silence fell over the followers, who now revered Adiris as their new High Priestess of Babylon. The natural lore progression of her tale ends with Adiris contracting and being overrun with the plague. Her background story is tragically wholesome, yet leaves one with many questions. We are only given a few hints at how she became a murderous priestess that catapults lethal vomit. For all things deeper and detailed in Dead by Daylight, we must of course look to the memories of the observer for true insight. Memory 4098. The Invokist comes forward, a small wrinkled man, buried under a white but bloody cloak. Adiris bows her head and joins the whispers around her. May you swim through sea and stars. The Invokist stands over the man bound to the altar, nods, pulls a sleeve back, reveals a spear gripped in hand, raises the weapon, and the tip pierces the bound man's lower back. He arches upward and screams, shakes, convulses, lower body remaining immobile, bladder emptying into the altar. The Invokist hefts his leg into the stone slab, pushing the spear until a gruesome snap. Shrieking, howling, pleading. Something beyond that, indescribable. A vertebrae bursts from the gaping wound and blood gushes. Bile rises in Adiris' throat as she turns away to stop herself from retching. Her fellow emissaries look upwards. Praise, glory to the gods. Nothing is heard over the screams of the man. His voice will surely reach the beyond. Adiris composes herself, recites sacred text in her mind. The plans of the gods shall not be questioned, for they know beauty the human eye cannot perceive. The plans of the gods shall not be questioned, for they know. Trust in them, Adiris. Trust in them. She relents to her faith, joining the others to celebrate, but notices Haban. He covers his face too late and she sees it, a tear spilling from his eye, a face that seems heartbroken. Intense, very intense. This memory from the observer quickly composes a gruesome understanding of who the sea goat is, the god of water and creation. The sacrifices were brutal yet tolerated. However, the noted tears of a man named Haban are not opposite with the teachings. Who is this man? Memory 4099. Adiris splashes water over the altar and scrubs. Red circle, swirling, bright, like the sun the day she was left at the temple door. Stifling heat, painful steps on burning sand. Mother and father, a missing piece in the memory, unfocused. Replaced by Haban. A crowd of imposing high priests, and only he peers warmly. She cries, so he lifts her, removes his hood. In the courtyard, he lets her touch the statues of the gods. Rishon, keeper of the stars. Otares, sentry of the desert. Atilalara, mother of humanity. deities that would watch over and protect her. Haban becomes teacher, father. He tells of the religion formed by exiles who believed other faiths had become corrupted by politics. They brought new insights to the afterlife and unified all gods beneath the great creator, the sea goat. She finds guidance in his teachings, meanings in servitude, comfort in knowing suffering is love. She may shudder at connecting compassions to bloody sacrifice, but she works continually to overcome her doubts. Yet, over the years, as her faith grows, Haban changes in a different way. She sees heaviness in his walk, hears his voice trail off when he reads the sacred texts. While he once stood energized by generous sacrifices to the gods, today he shows anguish. What darkness could snuff the desert sun? What an impactful memory seen by the observer. We learn that the priest named Haban ultimately was the highest form of influence for Adiris, as well as him transitioning into the role of her father. This religion of the sea goat creator has roots in love existing in the form of pain and sacrifice. Over time, it is becoming very clear that Haban's faith and dedication to the sea goat is diminishing. So, where do we go from here? Memory 4100. Adiris sits in the courtyard, Haban seated across from her. Eyes are fixed on a game board between them. She rolls a wooden die, moves a black disc over the board's squares, and lands on Haban's piece, places it to the side. No reaction from Haban. Adiris looks to him, sweet expression of concern. A joyous sacrifice this morning, would you say? The gods rejoice, praise be. Haban hardly lifts an eye. Praise be. A cool breeze, birds chirp unseen. Haban seems to scan the courtyard. Upon seeing no other occupants, he looks Adiris in the eyes. He was a good man, a friend, and the world is darker without. Adiris wonders if she's being tested. She knows what to say, interrupts him with a line that's been delivered to her 1,000 times before. It was commanded by the gods he swims in the wake of the sea goat now. Haban turns his attention to the game board, flicks away Adiris' disc and positions his at the end. It seems I have won, as was commanded by the gods. Adiris pushes her chair back, objecting. Haban sweeps the board off the table. I shall write the rules of anew. I shall include decrees, punishment, theft, and sacrifice. And should anyone object, I shall preach those monumentous words. It was commanded by the bloody sea goat and his damned gods. Adiris shakes her head, the shock of words she never thought she'd hear rattling painfully in her mind. This is blasphemy. Deep bags under Haban's eyes seem to swell. Yes, the truth often is. This memory from the observer is a paramount moment for Adiris. Her father figure is openly challenging and undermining the faith of the creator in real time. It is the first mention of a shift that conflicts with her inner alignment. A tough decision is coming. Memory 4101. The day of virtue arrives, a monthly ceremony to purify the congregation of dire sins. A bell tolls. Adiris and the rest of the temple's crowd drop to their knees. Forehead touches cold stone. She peeks up, sees the maiden guard arrive, stepping through the crowd, guided by faith to seek out the sinners. She waits, counts the scratches in the floor until a scream. A woman pleads, and, coughing, choking, Adiris looks up, sees a commoner dragged from the temple by her throat. She hardly notices 2 olive brown feet step in front of her. Rise. Rise! Adiris shrinks under the maiden's gaze, notices the hint of ripened dates from her opened mouth. Under the eyes of the sea goat, speak of the evil you have witnessed. Deliver us thieves, adulterers, and blasphemers so we may purge them. Shoulders stiffen. Adiris sees the face of Haban, the face of a man who raised her. She hears his gentle voice and the agitated voice of a blasphemer. Indecision knots in her chest. tightening, twisting. I have witnessed no evil. By the gods, my eyes are pure. The maiden examines Adiris. Seconds trickle by, ever slowing, stretching reality into seams, until the maiden nods. May you swim through sea and stars. She turns away, and Adiris summons every bit of strength to keep herself from collapsing. It is clear that Adiris is carrying the burden of extreme guilt. Her faith is so strong, yet she painfully endures the weight of knowing that Haban is a blasphemer. When directly asked by the maiden, she was not able to reveal the truths about her father figure. Memory 4102. Adiris sweeps dust from the altar floors. A set of hurried footsteps click along the stone, marching closer. She turns to see Haban, gentle face tensing. He hushes her. My daughter, curse the man I once was. I took you as a child and tainted you with notions of divine judgment and punishment. Now, I see you struggle. As these thoughts nearly take hold, I beg you, cast my teachings aside and see the blood spilled in this temple. No cleansing can purify the horror perpetrated here. The doctrine overflows in her mind. The will of the gods is law. No man shall question the divine. He who battles the tides will perish. But she surprises herself by remaining silent, and Haban seizes the moment. I am old and have wasted this life, but I cannot bear to destroy yours. Meet me here at nightfall in a fortnight's time, and we shall escape the clutches of deceit. If you have doubts, I ask you to consult with your gods. My daughter, may their silence be your answer. May their silence be your answer. Memory 4103. Though Adiris' heart beats, she feels emptiness where it should reside, a hollow space dripping acid into her churning stomach. Knees bruised, she prays to the gods, pleading, silently screaming for an answer. Nothing. The wind remains calm. She is alone, surrounded by stone, looked down upon by statues of gods unmoved. Dust floats through the air, settles on her skin, more real than anything she's ever believed. A lifetime of faith, security, crumbles. She feels unsteady. The only certainty in her mind is that she must leave this place. She rises to her feet, turns her back to the temple, and only then. The hushed chatter in her head is unclear. Inarticulate words pass through her forked tongue, but she feels it, understands a remarkable truth. She will never be alone. Ever. It seems that her faith cannot be challenged, as she was on the point of exploring, thinking, or perhaps even escaping with Haban, only to be reeled back in with the lure of never being alone. It was also at that moment that her whisper-like incantations became part of her. So what happens now? Memory 4104. Shame washes over Adiris as she retreats to her room. She dared doubt the gods. Within their chaotic whispers, pain, anger, bloodlust, Atone. She removes her robe, reaches for the lash, a crude whip of thorns and bronze spikes. Atone. She swings with great force. Spikes pierce her back, hooking into flesh as she pulls away. Through gritted teeth, she screams, keeping the sound in the base of her throat so no one can hear. Atone! She swings, droplets of blood sprinkling to the floor, spasms of pain as skin tears off, hanging on pale threads. Braces herself and whips again, till the crimson pools. Atone! How much blood is enough? Her body screams in agony. She thinks to drop the lash, run from these walls, but remembers the doctrine Haban taught her. Suffering is the heart of love. She tightens her grip and swings again. Memory 4105. Sweat weeps from Adiris' pores into her bedsheets. Thick scabs tear from her flesh as she shifts. With great effort, she lifts her head. Looking to the sound behind her, Haban. He kneels over her, wet cloth in hand. She's too feeble to speak, but the whisper does it for her. Hissing, thrashing, communicating a hurried feeling in her mind. Blasphemer. He washes the blood from her back, bringing his mouth to her ear. Is this the doing of the Maiden Guard? What has their blind faith wrought? She slips between consciousness as the blasphemer takes her hand. I have failed you, my daughter, but no more. Have strength and we shall soon escape. This memory that the observer has recorded is a very important moment in the story of Adiris. Here we see that the identity of Haban has shifted away from her savior, her teacher, her father, into Blasphemer. Memory 4106, the last entry from the observer. Though Adiris' movements are met with pain, she lifts her head to the sky, thanking the gods for their guidance. Their whispers remain, further away, dissipating yet still commanding, influencing. She opens her heart, allows the whispers to seize her body. She strides to the quarters of the Maiden Guard and takes a uniform, confident no one will discover the violation, knowing the gods are on her side. A censer of sweet frankincense sits atop the table, compelling her to it. She allows her hands to move as they will, filling the censer with oil and glowing embers. She does not question the will of the gods, knowing all threads shall be woven and someday the tapestry complete. Trust in them, Adiris. She steps into the moonlight. Nightfall. Smoke dances around her body. Bare feet carry her along a stone path to the mouth of the temple. As she peers inside, she sees through the shadows to the slight, shivering figure of the High Priest Haban, the Mentor, the Father, the Blasphemer. May his voice reach the beyond. Wow, what an amazing story. The tale ending with Adiris killing her own father figure Haban for challenging the faith. Dang. Her last words were, may his voice reach the beyond. Thank you so much for watching this video. I appreciate you. I hope you enjoyed the adventure of information from the archive showing us who the plague was. I personally find the Dead by Daylight lore outstanding and want to acknowledge what a great job the game creators have done. Did you have a favorite part of her story or a different theory than what is written? If so, let me know in the comments below. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my channel. This series, Tales from the Original Ones, is a DVD lore narrative that I'm creating for each character of the game. It should be noted that it's fun to think that additional stories will continue to be released as new tomes come out. My name is DrumRollTony and I stream Dead by Daylight on Twitch as my main gaming content. Catch me live and let me know which lore video you would like to see next. Have a great day and thank you again for watching.